My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Hey folks, welcome back. Today we got an old friend. Well, he's not that old. Look at that young, spry face, but a gentleman I've known for quite a few years, a very accomplished real estate entrepreneur, an entrepreneur in general in many different areas, Mr. Steve Arneson. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about what he's up to, investing from beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, which is an incredibly expensive market, what he's kind of had to pivot the real estate investing business towards over the last few years, which is development deals. So Steve, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Dave, so humbled and honored to be back here. I was looking up our last episode, and can you believe it? It's been 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
You must have been one of the first guys on the show, my friend. You definitely
must have been. Yeah,
Well, here we are. I don't know how many episodes we're in, over 1,200 at this point. So that's great. Great to have you back. So give us a little snapshot of what real estate investing looks like for Steve Arneson. We're recording this at the beginning of January 2025. What are you up to?
yeah. For the most part, now, there's been a lot that's happened over the last 6 years, as you can imagine. But a lot of the focus today is just on the development projects that we have on the go. And I
Mhm.
think when you're in markets similar to Victoria and key markets around British Columbia, maybe this applies to a lot of different markets across Canada as well. There's a lot of incentive for accessible
Mhm.
housing and attainable
Mhm.
housing. And so when you look at how the math pans out, the best thing to do is not to buy a three cap that's really a 2.5, but it's actually to build one. And you have a much newer product, more control. And when you look at the math on the side of things, it's basically the same in and out.
So are you doing build to rent or are you doing build to sell or both?
So currently, right now, it's all build to sell. So
Okay.
we have a number of different projects. We are looking at converting though from. So I give you a bit of a scope on things. Like a
Yeah.
small development that we have currently is like 9 units townhouse. The largest one right now is 46 unit, 5-story condo, and then a few like just kind of sprinkled in between. And with all the changes from interest rates to sales numbers, demand, all that kind of stuff, we've had to continually just adjust and pivot and think outside the box on different things. And one of the possible solutions to get the most return on investment for our partners and for ourselves is to pivot from condo to rental.
Hmm.
So we're actively looking at that on a couple different projects. One of the hurdles though is we've seen like most people don't think of this as a real risk, which it turns out to be the biggest risk of all of them is policy change and
Hmm.
something they don't have any control over, right?
Yeah.
But can
Yeah.
come out of the blue.
Well, give
And
me
we
give me an example. So it sounds like something's kind of hit you in the butt policy wise recently. So what's an example of that, Steve?
well, something that like probably doesn't affect everybody, but it affects me is like how CMHC regulates their like financing control. But
Hmm.
I'll give a more practical example for probably more of your listeners.
Sure.
So in 2000 and what would that be? 2019, I think, or maybe it was early 2000. It was early 2020. I removed subjects in February 2020, and it was on an Airbnb property,
Hmm.
specifically zoned in Victoria, BC, built, designed, and zoned for Airbnb. Fast forward a couple of years, things were going fine, other than having to pivot during the pandemic, the initial years or
Yeah.
months. And then the province of BC said, hey, guess what? If it's not in your primary residence, as this was a condo, if it's not underneath your single family home, basically, no more Airbnbs allowed.
Brutal.
So
Yeah, I
that's
know that bit so many people for sure.
so many people. And I don't think it had not nearly the effect, like the positive outcome effect of just making housing more affordable for people. And I think it did a
Zero.
lot more damage than not. But
I don't think it made a dent at all. It just kind of made a good news soundbite like they were trying to do something, right? That's
I agree.
and it got more people paying more money to stay at hotels again. So if you look at hotel prices, it's just stupid, right? So,
I wish I own hotels. Yes.
well, you know what? I've interviewed a number of people who were heavy into Airbnbs, and that happened in their areas, and now they're pivoting over into boutique hotels. So that's exactly what they're doing. Okay, so that's an example. Now you're in the development space. Any other policy changes our good old ever knowing federal and provincial governments have made that have just make you scratch your head or worse?
I mean, there's lots.
Yeah.
And it really surprised me. Like I've been investing, like I'll say professionally since 2015. A little bit before that personally. And, I didn't really get into politics until I was a little bit older when I really started to recognize the impact that it can have on us as humans, regardless if we're in business or real estate or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that I will say, instead of getting more onto the changes side of things, is something that we can do as an advantage as real estate investors, development or not. Something that most municipalities will have is an official community plan.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've been doing and have seen a lot of success in is not only studying that OCP, in which you'll see like the development plans of the municipality, um, but there's two like pretty killer tips that I think we've reaped some rewards on. One is you actually go inside of City Hall and you talk to the planning and development staff instead of just looking at the 400-page PDF. So
Okay.
you
Yeah.
get a little bit more insight, and every once in a while, they accidentally leak something that is an upcoming change to some of their bylaws or to some of their planning departments or some sort of additional incentive for us as housing providers. I've experienced that, whether it was an accident or not, or maybe it was more intentional. And we definitely benefited from just having about a 6 month advantage over the public market. So
So,
that's one.
unwrap that for me. I stagger into my local municipality and the bylaws and permits and whatnot. How do you strike up the conversation? How do you figure out who to talk to? What does that even look like?
It's incredibly simple and not daunting whatsoever because all you do is you go to the front desk, which there's always going to be a reception there, and you say, "Hey, my name is Steve Arneson. I would love to talk to somebody in planning and development within the municipality." And person will go and be like, "Oh, you got to talk to Bob or Janet or whoever,"
Yeah.
and they'll bring out somebody who just knows the bylaws, knows the planning, knows like the official community plan and what they want to see.
Hmm.
And then basically your first response into that is, "Hey, here's who I am, what I do, and what I believe in. But the number one thing is that I want to work with you." Instead of like a lot of developers just leading with their ego, go, "This is what I want to build. Make it
Yeah.
happen." Right? Don't do that. It doesn't ever go over well. And so you say, how do we like? What can you tell me that can help you accomplish your mission as city, which is probably attainable housing?
Yeah.
And where should I be looking right now? What is working? What are you seeing as permit wise? How can we submit our applications more efficiently so that we can save time, so that we can provide more housing faster? And you get a one-on-one, like real human conversation where it's less theory as the bylaws in the in the
Yeah.
articling of the OCP, and more so real life, tangible, tactical, recent events from the source itself.
That makes a ton of sense. And I'm sure they go off, right? Because they've got all the ego heavy developers coming in, trying to ram stuff down their throats. So this would be a complete 180 from what they're used to getting. And it just makes sense, right? You're trying to make their job easier, and being good civil servants, they like that idea of having easy jobs. So,
Yeah,
like,
and one of the best things you can do is just do a little bit of homework before you go in there, so you're
yeah,
not just considered the average homeowner coming in completely blind and thinking that you can put up a 6-story rental in your backyard.
right, right. Okay, good. So that's the first tip. What's the second big tip that you have for us?
The second tip. So this is where I think some genius happens. I'm a geek out here for a second. Any significant city, probably 25 or 50,000 people or larger, are going to have what's called GIS maps to go along with their planning. So what
So
a
dumb
GIS
question.
map,
What does that stand for? Do you know? GIS.
oh man, I don't actually know off
Oh
the
yeah,
top
no
of my
worries.
head.
GIS maps. Okay, got it.
But basically what it is it's sort of like a Google map for us for anybody who wants to be curious on the city or the municipality. And it shows zoning, it shows infrastructure, it shows parkland, it shows basically everything to do with planning development for that particular municipality.
Okay.
What we're seeing a lot of in BC and throughout a lot of Canada is density. Like we need to supply more dwellings so that we can reduce the cost of housing. And so if you look, there's a filter that you can add on there, which is like water, sewer, electrical, like infrastructure. And so if you add that filter, add zoning, and know where density is moving towards, you can typically look at where infrastructure stops. And what happens is you can go and buy property 2, 3, 5 kilometers down the road and know that development is heading that direction from the planning map that you've already seen. Infrastructure stops right here. So they're not quite there yet. And it basically is a treasure map to what's going to be densified next.
Ah, so you can do a little bit of land banking, get some stuff there, and hold on to it for a couple of years, and you're in the path of
Precisely.
progress.
So you can put
Smart.
one or two together, either do an assembly, you can do a partnership with a developer, you can wholesale it to a developer. I think there's a ton of opportunity in that little cheat code.
Very, very cool. So, what have you got your eyes on for the next couple of years, Steve, as far as your real estate investing, your development type deals? What size of projects? You said you're kind of getting out of the condo biz and more into the multifamily rental construction thing because again, that's what the government's encouraging. Do you
For
see
now.
that continuing to do that?
So, you know, as you mentioned, this is early January. We've recently seen Trudeau step down. There's likely going to be some sort of vote coming up. So, personally, I've already accepted that I'm probably not going to do anything, not major anyways, until there's more clarity in the federal market.
Hmm.
And real estate really is successful in stability. And so I've been patiently waiting, keeping my finger on the pulse, talking to people, making sure I don't lose sight of existing and possible future opportunities. But I'm really just practicing my patience right now and um, waiting for a change
Yeah.
while just managing what we have on the go already.
Yeah, it's so I know you work with a lot of entrepreneurs and up and coming real estate investors as well. So as somebody's kind of newer into real estate, not an absolute newbie, but kind of newer, maybe they got a couple of investment properties and they're looking to keep going. Under today's environment, any recommendations, any thoughts there for the smaller investor?
Yeah, I think there's two big things. One big thing and one strategy. The big thing is focus on the business behind the business. Right? So many people, myself included, got caught up in like I can retire on cash flow. And then by the time I acquire all the properties and all the doors, I can't retire because I've got 15 different hats that I'm wearing, managing all these doors and capital and all that kind of stuff, trades. And so I just replaced one job for a different one. That wasn't the
Mm.
intention. So I need to focus on delegation, operations to make sure that there's a roadmap so that you can actually have some financial and location independence.
Yeah.
So focusing on the business behind the business. Number two, I think if you've owned property for more than 4 to 5 years, like if you're a homeowner now, or if you've had income properties, or if you're, um, just your single family home, there are so many opportunities there um, to add some density, either through like the missing middle thing, where there's been a lot of municipalities take on blanket zoning in areas
Yeah.
for a single family lot to be zoned for up to 6 units, as well as like additional dwelling units, ADUs, where if you have a certain size lot, in Victoria and around here, it's usually 6,000, 7,000 square feet. You can add a detached um, dwelling unit on your property as well. And, immediately it might not be like cash on cash positive, but certainly long term, it's going to be an amazing development. And If by chance this is you and you have a laneway, man, you're sitting on a pot of gold.
Yeah, put in a what used to be called a carriage house or accessory dwelling units, the cool new term for them. But yeah,
Yeah.
very, yeah, good advice there, my friend. So I know over the last few years, you've kind of really gotten into the whole entrepreneurial side of things. I guess that kind of comes back to you figuring out wearing 15 different hats doesn't make any sense. So it's all about creating the systems and the processes and the SOPs and all that kind of good stuff and finding good team members. So what has that kind of led you down? What path has that led you down?
It's really actually sparked an incredible passion for me. I've always really been fascinated by, I would say, like successful people and like heroic actions. And I've always sort of studied like, William Churchill and Jim Rohn and like, generational significant leaders who had
Mhm.
difficult decisions to make. And I'm always curious, like when you have two bad decisions, how do you make the decision on which bad decision you're going to make, basically, right?
Especially Churchill, which was, the fate of the free world. It's kind of in the back.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
a hundred
Mind-boggling.
percent. And even if you have two good decisions, how do you make the decision between the two good decisions?
Yeah.
And so like I've really just like if you look at my bookshelf, it's all leadership books. It's all biographies, and I think there's so much wisdom to be gained from studying how the greats led their life, lived their life, what principles they made decisions from, what their core values sort of were, like how they were able to like just project. If I make this play, then this is going to happen, and like game theory almost. And so it's really having the 15 different hats for it forced me down this road of a more entrepreneurial mind instead of a doer. We get to become more so like the business owner, not the business operator. And it's just sort of sparked a passion, and I think that's going to continue. And it's something that I really just love talking about.
Awesome. What would be, I mean, besides the leadership books, or maybe even including them, what would be a couple of your favorite entrepreneurial type books that you kind of go back to on a regular basis?
Oh, on a regular basis.
Or just your favorite ones? What pops to your mind?
Well, the first one that came to mind is probably one of my favorite books, just because I'm a Nike fan. And Phil Knight just has a really, truly remarkable story on how Nike was created. And so
Hmm.
he has a book called Shoe Dog,
Yeah.
and it's top three for sure. Um, was it Steven Schwartz? No, Robert Eager has another one, the former CEO of Disneyland and and Disney. Um, Man, there are some mind-boggling stories in there where you had to make tough decision after tough decision, and really showed like how much of a class act you have to be to operate such a um, not only a significant company but also something that's so in the limelight of
Yeah.
the world, not just a
It,
city or a province or a state or whatever. There's Disney around the world. It's a global
it's a
brand.
worldwide brand. Everybody knows Disney, like literally.
Exactly.
Everybody knows
Yeah,
Mickey Mouse. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So those are a couple that just like jump off the page for me.
Yeah. No, that's good. When we were talking about that, a couple came to my mind as well. So
Like
I'm a
what?
big Dan Sullivan fan. Who Not How is an amazing book. I'm just
Yes.
revisiting a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine by
Mm,
Chet Holmes, which is not just about sales. It's about many things to do with business. I would you'd probably like that one very, very much. I'm sure people
yeah,
in your
great.
group would like that one as well. So highly recommend the new version of that. Yeah, there's just so many. And then for real estate investors, there's one called Profit First for real estate investors. There's
Oh, tell
Profit
me more about
First.
that one.
Yeah, well, there's the Profit First, just regular book for general entrepreneurs, but then by Mike Michaelwitz, I think is his name, and then
Mm,
a sharp real estate accountant kind of guy that works a lot with real estate investors applied the principles to real estate investors. It's called Profit First for real estate investors. So uh, those are and just the whole profit first concept. Makes
Hmm.
a ton of sense if you can kind of work that
That
in.
was one of the first ones that I read actually when I started, trying to remove some of these hats.
Yeah.
Really helped me frame and build a successful roadmap
Hmm.
for business instead of like I could see like when after I read it when it was like take profit first, I could tell that I was going into dishing away too much capital and not
Hmm.
reinvesting it into what's required for the next 4 or 5, 10 years.
Yeah.
Um, so that was certainly a mind opening book.
Oh yeah. No, that's awesome. Hey, Steve, if people want to connect with you, what's your number one favorite place for them to do that?
Instagram is the best for me, so it's
Okay.
just at Steve Arneson official.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Steve, let's not wait 6 years for the next one.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. Thanks again so much for what you do and for inspiring the world, for educating the world, and really, really appreciate you having me back.
Likewise, my friend. Take care and talk to you soon, everybody. Have a good
Cheers.
one. See you on the next episode. Bye bye. Hey there. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now, at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.